We all know how challenging making a quilt can be. There are so many stages, and there are several steps along the way that we just dread doing. I just love all the tips that hackers have invented to help you get through those tough spots. Today's guests, Jamie Trinier and Jessica Drain, are the founders of Sewtites. They found a challenging step in the process, and they thought magnets would help solve the problem. It's been 6 years since they've displayed their first products, and they have continued to expand their lineup with feedback from crafters. And last year, they launched their amazing magnetic cutting system, and they're going to tell us all about it. So grab your sewing and a cup of tea, and here's my interview with Sewtites. Well, welcome, Jamie and Jessica, to the show. Whereabouts in the world are you coming to us from?
I am in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and I'm Jamie.
And I'm Jessica, and I am in Billings, Montana, in the U.S.
So where was your home growing up?
Columbus, Montana. I married a Canadian and ended up in Canada.
I actually thought maybe it was because of your oil and gas background that maybe you ended up in Alberta.
No. Well, I mean, I guess kind of, because my husband went to school in Montana. We attended the same university, have the same engineering degree, and he was going for an oil and gas engineering degree. So I guess kind of. And then we worked in the States for a bit in Houston and Denver, and then decided to move to Canada 13 years ago. So it's home now for me.
So did you guys grow up in a crafty home?
Yes, we did. So yes, we did grow up in a very crafty home. Our mom was a graphic designer, so she worked until we were 3, and then she stayed home after that. But she had a dark room, which I don't know if we ever actually saw get used by the time we can remember anyway, but she had like all the things for, pasting up. Like she had this like wax kind of like thing that you could send papers through, and then you could pasteboard stuff. So like the pre-computer layout type stuff. And then, of course, she was huge into quilting and sewing. She always made our Halloween costumes and our Christmas pajamas. And so we always saw her, and she was a woodworker. I mean, she just did tons of things. And actually, our dad was quite creative as well, which I think we didn't really fully realize until we were adults. But he definitely has like kind of an artistic eye. He's a great photographer. He owned an auto body shop, which for good painting on a car is really an artistic kind of a thing. And then come to find out, when I was going to art school, when he and our mom first met, he was trying to decide between opening an auto body shop and becoming a ceramic artist. So we had lots of exposure to lots of different kinds of crafts. And our mom was always coming up with things for us to do in that way.
So when did you guys start quilting? Jamie, I think I read somewhere that you did what I did and started with a king-size quilt.
Yeah. Why not, right? My first
makes total sense.
Yeah. My first quilt was my now husband. I made it for his 25th birthday, a king-size quilt out of flannel too. Like, for real? I mean, we did the usual home ec that we had to do, and we did the stuff that we did with our mom, but I never really took an interest until I was in college for some reason. And I don't really know what made me want to do it. I think I was at home for Christmas break or something and was looking at mom's fabric, and there was a bunch of flannel that she had. I just decided I wanted to try it and then really enjoyed it. But the engineer brain likes the math, and I prefer, precision. I'm not so much of an improv person. Like, I like the precision of it and kind of the puzzle, almost like Lego with fabric.
I honestly believe that some of the pioneer women that did so much quilting and why piecing took off is because there were just so many engineers that just didn't know they were engineers.
Right, because they couldn't be. Yeah.
Yeah. And Jessica, are you a quilter too?
I'm not. I think it's becoming more and more known about that. I have made one also king size quilt that is on my bed, and I do sleep under. It took me, I think, 3 years to finish with our mom's help, a lot of our mom's help. Jamie's help too at the beginning. And I've made stockings. So I know how to sew, and I appreciate it. I love it. I absolutely like going to shows and seeing everything is amazing. And I'm always like, I'm going to make something. but it just isn't, at least not at this point in my life, isn't the thing that I like to pursue in my spare time trying to learn. I draw lettering, and like I'm a graphic designer by my training and stuff. And I think maybe my day-to-day job, even in this, is it really satisfies a lot of creative capacities for me. And so I just haven't done much of it, but I've learned a lot. I can talk the talk at this point.
I hear bags mentioned a lot. Were you a bag maker, or are you still a bag maker?
No, I do not sew, pretty much.
Okay.
If something is, needs hemmed, my mom does it, um, Jamie is the one who was making a bag that kind of was the catalyst for Sewtites. She was the one making a bag, needing to put a leather handle on it, thought of using magnets for it. And then she told me about it because she was pretty excited about the idea. And then my background being marketing and graphic design was just kind of like, that seems like a problem other people have. And then 2 years later, within a year and a half, we were on the market. So
yeah, you seem to have just arrived, and it just keeps on growing, all your different ideas.
Yeah, we kind of call it magic. And like Jamie says,
Frank's, the Frank's Red Hot Sauce commercial, the old lady says she puts that stuff on everything.
A couple of exploits.
Yeah, asterisk, ampersand. Oh, yeah, we just put magnets on everything.
Well, I'm very late to the magnet world, and I cannot believe how much they help. Of course, there's the English paper piecing application and the magnums that I use on my long arm. But now, anytime I'm using big, awkward pieces, I grab the magnets. So it helps stabilize the bulk of the fabric. And then I'll do a fine tuning on the side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of amazing how it's grown. I mean, like we said, we just initially, Jamie had made it for bag making. And what we did was we actually just kind of test marketed the idea at QuiltCon in 2018. We actually had a different business that we shut down after this kind of came out of it, that was a fabric subscription box. And we were there for that. And we just thought, let's see if people think this is a good idea. And we took prototypes of Sewtites down, handed them out for free, and ran out in a day and a half. And we were only speaking to bag making at the time. Then industry friends we had made 6 months later, because we started getting stock by distributors. They called us to stock them everything. But industry friends had said, we had sent some to, said, oh, I think they'd work for this, like English paper piecing. Kitty Wilkin, who's Night Quilter on Instagram, was one of the first to say that and try them out. And then we get feedback like, I wish they were smaller. I wish they were stronger. So we'd do a different model. And then lots of people are saying, I think these will work for long arm quilting, loading them on and so we just, machine embroidery. Somebody say, I think these will work great for cutting out my pattern pieces if your boards were magnet, like if you made a cutting mat that was magnetic. As we're like at trade shows and we're getting feedback from customers or listening to them, we're kind of like, ooh, here's something else we could maybe magnetize, So we do have like a list quite long that we're hoping to eventually get through and launch. It's just a matter of, we are a small business and cash flow and all of those things, getting them tested out and launched.
So Jamie, how much did you know about magnets before you started?
Not much. That they were fun to play with. Yeah, I mean, not much at all, really. Metallurgy is important, and pull strength and all that stuff are things we talk about.
So were the suppliers hard to find?
Not for our original products, like the original Sewtites. We've been with the same supplier the whole time. They've been really great to work with. And for the cutting system, it was more challenging. For our original products, they've been great.
Yeah, it just is a matter of kind of finding the right connections. We've really been lucky in that in a lot of ways. We actually have had a concept for a product. I think at this point, we thought of it at this point like 3 or 4 years ago. And we're just running it into roadblock after roadblock for producing it. So it honestly might never get produced because it's something that we're still so small in the manufacturing world that we would have to have really original molds made for different things and aspects and components of the product that is cost prohibitive. And we'd have to order so much and, produce so much. It just doesn't make sense. But we're trying to come up with other ways to produce the same deliverable in a lot of ways.
That is one of the big challenges when you have a new product is to figuring out the scale that you want to risk your capital in versus the scale that manufacturers will supply you with, the minimum amount usually.
Yeah.
Now, have you been able to get any support through business initiatives and things like that to help you on your way?
Yeah, actually, I mean, since we're a US based business, there are, and it's interesting because I actually didn't look for grants for the first few years that we were in business because I thought, well, we're not manufacturing in the US, so how could we get grant funds? But the US government actually considers you a US manufacturer as long as you're adding over 51% profit, or I don't know what you call it, value in the States. So, we import at a certain cost and then we're selling it at another cost. And as long as we're adding over 51%, we're considered and we're in Montana. So we get the grants through the federal government as well as the state, like through the state program. So there are trade show grants for manufacturers as well as grants for like intellectual property. It's an export program. So most of it is also for trying to export US products to other countries. So we have gotten funds for trade shows that have an international presence that are even domestic, as well as for international intellectual property. So we are expanding our, trademarks and all of that stuff to countries that we're either present in or expanding to.
It's really exciting. You must be really proud of yourself. At least your parents must be very proud of you.
Yeah. Some days we step back and we're like, wow, this is pretty cool. And it is kind of amazing. We knew nothing when we started, really. We had our unique backgrounds that were and things we had read and just kind of some serendipitous experience. And just, I don't know, we'd also just are lucky, that we came up with an idea that hadn't been marketed previously and solves a problem that in a way that nothing else on the market does. So, it's just kind of like all this nexus of things came together. And
partnerships are hard. And being sisters, it might help, but I'm sure there's also some challenges with that too. How have you divided up the responsibilities, especially as the company has grown so much?
I mean, there was really no, you're going to do this, I'm going to do that. Like our brains just work very differently. At first, I was the one doing the spreadsheets and the finding the manufacturer and doing all that sort of thing. And Jessica was responsible for, our graphic design and our marketing and that kind of thing. So I would get the products to Montana and she would take it from there. Just as we started to really start to gain traction, I decided I should buy a quilt store in Calgary. And that is an all-consuming beast. So I really don't do much anymore, and Jessica does all of it. So it's really Jessica runs the day-to-day now, and it's her full-time job, and I listen.
When we do have staff that supports us as well, you will hear in business some people say, don't ever do a partnership. It's the worst decision you could do, but it's made us closer because we do live 8 hours from each other in different countries. So not that that's hard, but during COVID, we couldn't visit each other for some time. And so, we're having weekly meetings and we're talking and we're able to really talk through things. And even if we kind of have different viewpoints, really understand each other. And I don't know if that's like a credit to our parents. We did fight a lot as kids, but as adults, we are able to kind of see each other's viewpoint and then come to an agreement. And, I think we were talking about this the other day. I don't really know if we've ever gotten in like a fight at this point, even still. And we're 7 years in at this point. So it's been a really great thing for our relationship as well. Yes, Jamie has a store now. We're happy to continue growing and we're adding teammates to support me. So we have somebody helping with our social media and our marketing, Tara, and then we have a gal named Ashley who does our customer service and order fulfillment. So that frees me up to do more of like the tasks that Jamie was doing initially, some of that, more of that like spreadsheet, projecting, cash flow, finance strategy. I still do quite a bit of marketing strategy along with, collaborating with Tara on that. But yeah.
Was it scary, Jessica, leaving whatever business that you had before or your job before and doing this full time financially?
Yes and no. I mean, we didn't actually pay ourselves anything out of the company for 3 years, I think, right?
Yeah.
So we both were working other jobs. Jamie in her engineering. I was in. I've been my own entrepreneur since 2012, but I also did get a real job there for a couple of years between 2017 and 2020. I still actually haven't fully let go of some of the freelance stuff. It's actually kind of helping Jamie is mainly my client with the quilt shop.
Our main client, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's kind of crazy. I'm very comfortable with risk at this point. I think because there has been points in my life where I was really had nothing and we've slowly done it, right? I haven't just been like, oh, this is my main thing and now I'm going to pay myself all this money out of the company. We're slowly incrementally increasing our pay, just trying to put as much back into the company to grow it for the long-term benefit of the company. I wouldn't say it's been like terrifying at all, but I mean, I think there have been moments where it's been just fine.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's not like, I mean, you didn't leave a like salaried job. I think it would be different if it was like a full-time salaried job that you left,
right.
Because everything was always overlapping. So
Jamie, you left a job and then bought a quilt store as well as doing Sewtites. Did you think that there was going to be some synergism between Sewtites and your quilt store, or there was an opportunity and you took it?
Yeah, it was just an opportunity and something that I wanted to do for myself for the quilt store. And then obviously I knew I would like stock Sewtites. And Sewtites wasn't as big as it is now at the time. So I had never run a business before. So I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I thought it would be like I'd have all this. I didn't think it would be as consuming as it is. Like I still thought I would have the time and the brain space for both, but it just is not. And so Sewtites, because of the way it's grown, it really does need one person really at the helm. And then like I say that our org chart is everybody's here and Jamie's off over here. But you really do need one person. And for Sewtites, that's Jessica.
And she's always my sounding board, and we make major decisions together and everything.
Is your quilt store the warehouse for Sewtites in Canada, or do you ship everything from Billings?
No, they're completely separate businesses. Like I do sell Sewtites at my store, but my store is called Out of Hand. If someone buys it from Out of Hand, we ship it. But if it's purchased from Sewtites, it is shipped from Billings. The businesses are separate, and taxes and all that stuff. No.
Yeah, we don't want to have nexus in multiple countries.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny how what you think is a logical logistic move ends up being absolutely no sense whatsoever once you get down into the taxes and the customs and things like that.
Yeah.
And trying to keep the businesses separate. So do you have other people in your family working for you?
No. When we first started our first business, which was the subscription box, our parents were involved and our mom did like help cut fabric and stuff. But we bought them out of the company in 2021. And occasionally if we need our mom to fulfill orders, if no one else is available, she will. But at this point, no, it's just the two of us, and then Ashley and Tara.
She does come to one trade show usually a year with us, which is in Houston, because our older sister lives in Houston and our nieces and stuff. So it's an opportunity for her to get to be still a part of it. And she's actually great in the booth. She's persistent and super sweet and always gets people to talk to her. Does the things we don't want to do sometimes. And then we get to see her sister and spend time all together.
Is she a quilter?
Our older sister?
Yeah.
No.
Jamie's the one that got the bug.
It's always interesting how in a family, like when a parent is a quilter, where it trickles down to. Some people just have nothing to do with it, and other people just go whole hog right in.
Yeah.
How long does it take when you get an idea before you actually take it to market? Are there challenges that you didn't know you were going to have? And what's the easy part?
That depends on the product. So if, like when we were first starting with Sewtites, I think, we placed our first production run as soon as we got home from QuiltCon. It was a good idea. And I believe we had them in hand within 6 weeks. But as we've developed more, we get prototypes made, well, can be a couple months depending on like the design process, how complicated it is. Usually for Sewtites products, we say it takes anywhere from 6 to 9 months from inception to deliverable. We are working on one more Sewtites model right now. We're not really sure how many more we'll end up doing because they kind of are serving a lot of needs at this point, and we don't hear a lot of feedback like I wish they were something different than what we have at this point. So we're trying not to overwhelm people. I mean, we already kind of overwhelm people with how many options there are. It's just the nature of magnets, I suppose. Our cutting system product, we initially started pursuing and looking into manufacturing that product, I believe 2 or 3 years before it went to market. And we did kind of keep running into roadblocks. And then we found out it was patented. So we were like, oh crap, we can't even pursue this at all. Because it seemed like a simple idea. We didn't think it would be patentable, right? But it turns out it was. We had to work out a license agreement and work out all that. The manufacturing of that, even though it seems like a really simple product, because it's just, you look at it and you think there's nothing complicated about this. We make, robots. How can this be a hard product to produce? But it actually was. It had some challenges to it that took a while to figure out, but we lucked into some connections that connected us with some great suppliers who figured it out. Once we had the right connections and the right people in place, we were able to get it to market within 9 months as well.
You've mentioned the suppliers and the prototypes. How supportive are suppliers when you have to make those prototypes? They must be expensive in terms of brain power and actually the physical making of prototypes.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the supplier. They don't push back. And some kind of are like, for example, right now we are iterating some things with the cutting system, and we wanted to test multiple versions at once, because rather than doing like this version, if we don't like it, we do another one. That just takes more and more time. So we asked them to produce 4 different versions of a ruler. And we did get a little bit of like, that's complicated, that's too much, initially. But, we were able to say to them, like, this is going to save us all time and money if we just do it all and we're paying you for it, right? I think it's because, one, we're still really small potatoes, so they're taking this time kind of, and I think large corporations also prototype potentially in-house is kind of my understanding, like really big companies. Sometimes those suppliers aren't necessarily the ones doing the prototyping, but they are with us. So it's just a little bit different situation, but we have good relationships, and, we're learning how they work. They're learning how we work, and, we're growing together. So it is mutually beneficial. It's just sometimes a little bit of a give and take.
You mentioned that you found one of your products already had a patent on it. And quite honestly, I don't think I would have thought of looking for an existing patent already. Who made that decision to go check?
We have an IP attorney, a really great intellectual property attorney that we use a lot because, trademarks and all that stuff. And so we always just have her check just to be sure, just to run a patent search and just.
Although I didn't at first, because I was trying to save money on the cutting system, because I was trying to just be like, in my mind, and now we know that lesson, and we learned it from that, is every single product idea is just have her do the intellectual property research, because it doesn't make sense to go down any type of prototyping or manufacturing rabbit hole until we know we're not going to be infringing on anybody. So, in my mind, that was such a simple product, it couldn't be patented. It was obvious, but turns out it's not. I don't remember how we decided we should look into it. I think maybe I just got wind somehow that it was patented. So we had her search it, and then she said, sure enough. And So, at that point we thought, well, we just can't even manufacture this. But she's a great attorney and said, well, there's a thing called licensing. You could reach out to her and see if she's willing to work with you. And you would pay her like a percentage of sales to be able to have the rights to manufacture it. And turns out that woman was very excited to hear from us. And so it's been a great partnership and a, wonderful thing for all of us.
So if people want to test out your magnets before they buy, where's the best place for them to find it?
At their local quilt shop, ask them to carry them. And we also have some packs that are just kind of little samplers. They're like one of 3 different kinds. So that's a great way to test them out too, to see what they might like.
And so local quilt shops, if they don't carry them, we are carried through Checker, as well as we sell wholesale direct. And then we do a few trade shows a year as well, both consumer and wholesale. So we do Quilt Market and Quilt Festival in Houston, QuiltCon, Quilt Week in Paducah, and then H&H Americas. And we actually just hired a gal named Melissa. She's going to be heading up, or she is heading up kind of our trade show division. She's going to be building out and getting us a presence at more trade shows moving forward and building kind of a team that will work those shows.
Now, you've gotten into some licensing too. I know Tula Pink has her own little shapes, and you've got a Liz Elliott, Sugar Skull. Are you working with other people for some branded items?
Not at the moment. We did one with Laura Heine as well, but it, this kind of just on a case by case basis when someone wants to or has an idea. Honestly, they don't do quite as well as our like original shapes. There are collectors out there who want all the Sewtite shapes.
Isn't that funny about people, the completists that want everything?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And or people who are super fans of that specific designer. They might not ever use the product. I mean, hopefully they would use our product, but they get it just because it's that person's. But I mean, collaborations have been great for getting the word out, especially with Tula Pink. Obviously, she's so big, and that was such an amazing experience for us. Our utilitarian shapes just really serve people's needs kind of more universally than the special shapes do. So they end up being bigger sellers.
With the next generation, do you have any children or nieces or nephews that are interested in the company and what you do and being part of it?
Yeah, so I do have a boy who's going to be 13 next week. And he asked me the other day if we can hang on to the company long enough so that he can take it over. And my answer was no. You can do your own thing. Jamie and I, we grew up in an entrepreneurial family, and our dad sold his business before we were adults. And that's kind of our end goal as well for the company. So, and there's just something to be said for learning your own path and taking your own path. So yeah. They are interested in, especially, well, and Jamie's kids are, your kids like to sew a little bit.
Yeah, my oldest likes to sew, and he's said when he grows up, he's either going to be an engineer or a quilt shop owner, but that's because that's all he knows. And the quilt shop will probably be around or in my hands longer than we know for quite some time. But I think it's more the instilling the entrepreneurial spirit in them more than
the facing problems and having to solve them constantly, not just today, but every week. What is the problem to solve? Our kids came into the office, not this business, but another business that my husband and I owned, and they swear they were slave labor, even though I never paid them.
My kids have helped me move stuff from, garage once we got a warehouse. Sometimes they help label stuff. Ashley, our employee, her kids help her actually sometimes because she just doesn't have childcare or something, and she has to have them. Not because we ask her to, but because she just wants them to help her. So there's a lot of lessons to be learned. And I still work from home. So, like in the summer and after school, the kids do definitely get a front row seat when there's a problem, because if there's something that's wrong and I'm not having a good day, they get to hear about it,
Jamie, with you, your quilt store must be a 24-hour. I don't know how you have any brain capacity for anything else. Do you have your whole family in helping, or are you doing it on your own?
No, they don't help me. But my husband has a full-time job, and we have a great nanny who helps us at home. So that is, I mean, that's huge for me. Like we couldn't do what we do without her. And then I also have a great team at the store too. The first year was a lot because the store only came really with 2 employees, one customer facing and one kind of behind the scenes with kids and stuff. So it was a lot, and there was a lot of tears and a lot of, oh my gosh, what did I do? Like, I don't know how many commutes in, I was on the phone with Jessica crying. Like, what did I do? Once I realized I could hire people, that I don't have to be the one doing everything, it became a lot easier. I mean, it's still all consuming. I mean, just because you're running a business and it's a whole thing. Even I thought like, oh, I get to play with fabric all day. No, you do not. And it's also the stage of life with 2 little kids. I don't really sew much at all right now, unless I need to make a sample or something, or unless I really want to make a project. I did just make a new quilt for my bed because I really loved the fabric and I really wanted to make it. But unless it's one of those 2 things, I don't sew much. But that's with little kids. It's just the way, the age and the stage right now. Like we're in year 3 now of owning the store, and it is way easier than, I mean, it's not easy, but compared to that first year, it is easier as far as the mental load now. Like I'm starting to feel like I know what I'm doing, depending on the day.
I just think even just ordering the fabric must be so tricky. Like, what
Yeah.
you like.
I mean, really, I don't order stuff I don't like. There's stuff that is maybe not my taste, but I still think it's pretty, and I know that my customers like it. I buy that way, but if I don't like it, I don't buy it. It's hard to sell something you don't like. So
It is. It's very, very hard.
yeah. When you get this stack, this high of fabric on the table in front of you from just one distributor, it's hard to choose and it's hard to keep. So there's a spreadsheet for that now.
Well, when I interviewed Kimberly of the Fat Quarter Shop, she told me that unless she blocks out time in her calendar, she never gets to sew. Like, it has to be such an intentional thing.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
To sew. Go
yeah,
ahead.
it's like wonderful to be a part of such a creative industry and be around, see all the things that people are doing in this and get to be a part of it. But there is, for the people, I'm not one of them because I didn't sew before, but for the people who kind of got into it because they did the craft, a lot of times their activity in the industry makes it so they have less time for the thing that they love. But I don't know, it's kind of a dance in some ways, in my perspective. And in some ways, it's also like, I mean, I don't know, Jamie, I think at this point you're glad of the choice you made. You're not living in the corporate engineering world.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't sewing then either, because it's also just being a mom and being, a spouse there's all those other things too, that like it's running a business, it's taking the kids to hockey, it's like all those things. So.
Well, even taking the kids to hockey can be scheduled. It's oh, I forgot to give you this form, Mom. And you're scrambling trying to find whatever the teacher needs that day.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Or they get sick, but you've got a nanny. Yeah. I agree. I think a nanny is, for any self-employed person, the nanny is the way to go because they help you so many other ways other than just child work.
It's also working for me. I'm a single mom. So working from home, even before I was a graphic designer and a marketer and had a freelance business, I just happened to be lucked. I lucked into doing something that the internet took off right at the time I could be rural and doing that. And, when my kids were really little and they were sick, I couldn't do much work because you can't really put a computer on your lap and a child at the same time. But now, even if they're home sick, I mean, actually, my oldest has been sick the last couple of days, and I've actually gotten more work done because we were going to be doing all this fun stuff in the afternoons because it's still summer, we're still in summer break and we haven't been able to do it. So I've actually been able to work more. There are just kind of serendipitous things that have made it so that we both can successfully do the thing and not kill ourselves. There were a few years prior to Sewtites becoming more of a thing that I was like not sleeping enough and all of those things, but finally into the sleeping enough stage.
Thank you so much, both of you, for taking the time and being on the show. If people want to see more of Sewtites, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
I think that, definitely following us on socials at Sewtites, Sewtites, is a great way to kind of keep up with, things that we share as well as our affiliates and influencers, kind of a collaborators, so that we're on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, and YouTube. Anyone wanting to sign up for our email list, there is an opt-in form on our website that gets you, we send a couple a month is all at this point, about kind of promotions. We do a live that's recorded, kind of educational content, as well as product launches and pre-sales and things like that. So that's kind of a good way to see what's going on.
Well, thank you very much. I hope I see you next year at QuiltCon.
Yeah, we'll be there.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Jamie and Jessica. It's amazing to hear about all the steps and challenges in bringing ideas to market. But I'm glad they did, because I really enjoy their magnets in my hand sewing, on my long arm, and on my cutting table. If you want to know more about Sewtites, I will leave links to their website, their YouTube channel, and their social media in the video notes below. Next time you're in your sewing room, have Karen's Quilt Circle playing on in the background. I have interviewed so many amazing people on this show. Let one inspire you. And don't forget, you can take it with you with YouTube music. And check out my last video too. Take care, and I'll see you next time.